I never thought I'd be the guy writing one of these posts. I always read them, sometimes shaking my head at how clueless some people were about their partners, sometimes feeling sorry for them. But I never once thought I'd be in their shoes. Yet here I am, sitting in a quiet apartment that used to be my home, staring at the walls that used to mean something, trying to figure out where it all went wrong. Emily and I had been married for 6 years. When we first met, I thought she was the most incredible woman I had ever laid eyes on. She had this energy, this way of making everyone around her feel like they were the most important person in the room. She was confident, funny, always the life of the party. I was more reserved, the kind of guy who preferred a quiet night at home over a night out, but somehow, we just clicked. We balanced each other out, or at least, I thought we did. The first few years of our marriage were good. We traveled, built a home together, made plans for the future. I never once doubted her loyalty, never once had a reason to question her commitment. If anything, I was the one who always worried about whether I was doing enough, whether I was being the husband she deserved. And that's what makes everything that happened so much worse. I wasn't just betrayed, I was played. Looking back, the signs were there. Little things that didn't seem like much at the time but now stick out like red flags I should have paid more attention to. It started with her phone. Emily was never the type to be glued to her screen, but over the past few months, it had become an extension of her hand. She'd angle it away from me when she was texting, her laughter suddenly quiet when she read something on the screen. I'd ask what was so funny, and she'd brush it off. Just a meme. A work joke. Nothing important. Then came the late nights. She had always been ambitious, dedicated to her job, but she had never been the kind of person who stayed at the office until midnight. Yet suddenly, she was constantly swamped with work, always meeting deadlines that never seemed to end. I wanted to believe her, and at first, I did. But something felt off. She was too vague when I asked questions, too quick to dismiss any concerns. Her attitude toward me changed too. Little things that never used to bother her suddenly became sources of frustration. She started picking fights over nothing, rolling her eyes when I tried to talk to her. The affection was gone. She still kissed me goodbye in the mornings, still played the role of a loving wife in front of other people, but in private, it felt like I was living with a stranger. I convinced myself it was just a phase, that maybe she was stressed, that maybe I needed to put in more effort. I planned a weekend trip for us, thinking some time away together would help, but she shot it down before I could even finish the sentence. Too busy with work. Maybe another time. I nodded, pretending I understood, even though something inside me told me that time would never come. Then there was the perfume. It wasn't hers. She had a specific scent she always wore, something light and floral. But one night, when she came home late, I caught a whiff of something entirely different, something musky, something unfamiliar. I asked about it, and she laughed, said a coworker had sprayed too much and that it must have rubbed off on her. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to ignore the nagging feeling in my gut, the feeling that something was very, very wrong. But deep down, I knew that I just didn't have proof, and that's what led me to the moment that changed everything. The moment that shattered the illusion I had been desperately holding on to. The moment I finally realized that the woman I had loved, the woman I had built a life with, was not who I thought she was, and the worst part? She wasn't even sorry that I didn't go looking for proof. I wasn't one of those husbands who checked his wife's phone or tracked her location. I believed in trust, in giving someone space, in assuming the best rather than the worst. But sometimes, the truth finds you whether you're ready for it or not. It happened on a Tuesday. A completely normal day, nothing out of the ordinary. Emily had left early for work, giving me the usual rushed goodbye before heading out the door. I went about my morning routine, drinking coffee, scrolling through my emails, mentally preparing for another long day. If you had told me that by the end of the night, my entire world would be turned upside down, I wouldn't have believed you. It started with a package. Emily had been getting a lot of deliveries lately. More than usual. Every few days, there'd be a new box waiting by the door: clothes, shoes, beauty products. She said she had been treating herself, that work had been stressful, that she deserved something nice. I didn't question it. She made her own money, and if shopping made her happy, who was I to say anything? But that day, I happened to be home when the delivery arrived. I heard the doorbell ring and opened it, expecting the usual brown package. Instead, I came face to face with a man I had never seen before. Young, maybe mid-20s, fit, confident, the kind of guy who carried himself like he owned every room he walked into. He wasn't wearing a typical courier uniform, just jeans and a fitted black shirt, but he had a small package in his hand, one with Emily's name on it. He looked at me, his expression flickering with something I couldn't quite place. Surprise? Annoyance? He quickly covered it with a polite smile. Delivery for Emily, he said. That I took the package, nodding. Thanks. He hesitated, like he was waiting for something. Then, as if deciding against whatever was on his mind, he nodded back and turned to leave. I shut the door, but something felt off. I didn't know what, but my gut told me that wasn't just any delivery guy. Curiosity got the better of me. I checked the package. It was from a boutique Emily had never shopped at before. That wasn't strange in itself, but when I shook the box, I realized something. It was light, way too light for clothes or shoes. Almost like paper. Something gnawed at me. I shouldn't have opened it. I should have just left it on the counter and waited for Emily to come home. But my hands moved before my brain could stop them. Inside was a handwritten card. A small, neatly folded note. Can't wait to see you again. That was all it said. No name. No signature. Just those words, written in casual, confident handwriting. The room felt too quiet. Too still. My fingers tightened around the note, my mind racing. I checked the box again. Nothing else inside. No receipt, no indication of where it had come from. Just the card. I stood there for a long time, staring at those 6 words, feeling the slow, creeping realization settle in. My heart pounded, my breath coming in short, shallow bursts. I didn't want to believe it. I wanted to think there was an explanation. But I knew. I knew the way Emily had been acting. The secretive phone habits. The late nights. The sudden irritation with me. The perfume. And now, a card from an unknown sender, delivered by a man who had looked at me like I was standing in his way. The pieces clicked together. Emily was having an affair. I just didn't know with who, yet I stood there, staring at that card for what felt like hours, my mind spinning in a dozen different directions at once. My body felt numb, like I had been dropped into a freezing ocean, unable to move, unable to think straight. The walls of my home, the home Emily and I had built together, suddenly felt unfamiliar, like I didn't belong there anymore. My hands were shaking, not with anger, not yet, but with something worse, the overwhelming realization that my marriage, my life as I knew it, was about to crumble. I forced myself to take deep breaths, to steady the chaos in my mind. I needed to be sure. I needed to know for a fact that what I was thinking wasn't just some horrible misunderstanding. Maybe the card wasn't for her. Maybe it was some mix-up, a wrong delivery. Maybe there was an innocent explanation. But deep down, I already knew there wasn't. Everything in my gut told me that this wasn't a mistake. This was exactly what it looked like. I went to the front door, peering out the window, hoping that maybe the courier was still outside, that I could ask him some questions, get something, anything out of him. But he was gone. Just like that. Almost like he had been in a hurry to leave before I could put 2 and 2 together. That wasn't normal. Most delivery guys just dropped off packages and left without thinking twice. But he had hesitated. He had looked at me like I wasn't supposed to be there. And now, I couldn't shake the feeling that he knew exactly what was in that box before he even handed it to me. I went to the kitchen, sat down at the table, and placed the card in front of me. My mind went into overdrive, running through every moment from the past few months, looking for the signs I had missed. Emily had been so good at hiding it, at making it seem like everything was fine, even when it wasn't. She had played the role of the stressed, overworked wife so well that I had believed her. I had given her space, let her do her thing, trusted her, because that's what you do in a marriage. You trust. And now, I felt like the biggest fool in the world that I had to get proof. Real proof. The card wasn't enough. If I confronted her with just that, she'd laugh it off, call it a prank, say I was being ridiculous. No, I needed something undeniable. If I was going to call her out, I had to make sure she couldn't twist it, couldn't turn it around on me and make me feel like I was imagining things. Her laptop was in the living room. She never logged out of her email. She was careless like that, because she had never needed to be careful. I had never given her a reason to think I would check. And right now, I was counting on that. My hands were sweating as I opened the lid, clicked on her email, and held my breath when the inbox loaded. At first, there was nothing suspicious. Just work emails, promotions, the usual junk. But then I saw it. A folder labeled personal. I clicked it and my stomach dropped. There were dozens of emails. Some from names I didn't recognize, some with no subject lines, some just single-word messages. But there was one in particular that caught my eye, a thread that had been going back and forth for months. And the sender's name? Daniel. That I clicked on the latest message, heart hammering in my chest. Daniel, can't stop thinking about last night. When can I see you again? My entire body went cold. That I scrolled up. Message after message. Plans. Inside jokes. Flirty comments. It was all there, spelled out in black and white. Emily, tomorrow. Same place, Daniel, of course. But next time, don't rush off so soon. I miss waking up next to you. I nearly slammed the laptop shut. I could feel my pulse in my throat, my head pounding. There it was. The proof I needed. Emily was cheating on me. And not just an emotional affair, not just flirting. This was physical. She had been meeting up with him, sneaking off, spending the night. And then she had the audacity to come home to me, look me in the eyes, and pretend like nothing had happened. I forced myself to read more, even though every word felt like a knife to the gut. The emails went back months. Not just a fling. Not just a one-time mistake. This was a full-blown relationship. She had been living a double life while I had been sitting at home, waiting for her, trusting her, and then I saw the part that made my blood run hot. Daniel, are you sure he won't find out? Emily, he's clueless. He never asks questions. He trusts me too much. It's cute, honestly, that I had to put the laptop down before I threw it across the room. My hands were shaking, my breathing ragged. She thought I was clueless. She thought my trust was cute. I wasn't clueless anymore. I grabbed my phone and took pictures of the emails, scrolling through each one, making sure I had everything documented. If she thought she could keep lying to me, keep playing me for a fool, she had another thing coming. Emily wasn't home yet. I had time. Time to figure out how I wanted to handle this. Time to decide whether I wanted to confront her the second she walked through the door or wait, plan, gather even more evidence. Because one thing was for sure, this wasn't going to end the way she thought it would, and I was going to make sure of that. I sat in that chair for what felt like hours, staring at the laptop screen, reading the messages over and over again as if the words would somehow change. As if I would suddenly wake up and realize that I had misread everything. But there was no misreading this. Emily had been cheating. 4 months. And she had been so confident, so certain that I would never suspect a thing, that she had laughed about it behind my back. That was what stung the most. The betrayal, the lies, the deception, all of that was painful, yes, but the worst part? She thought I was a fool. That I should have felt heartbroken. I should have felt devastated, but all I felt in that moment was a slow-burning rage, something deep and unshakable. This wasn't just an affair. This was her making a game out of it. This was her enjoying the fact that I trusted her too much to ever question her. She thought she was untouchable. She thought she had me wrapped around her little finger. And now? Now she was about to learn just how wrong she was. That I wasn't going to rush this. I wasn't going to let my emotions get the better of me. I wanted to destroy whatever fantasy world she had built with this guy, and I wanted to do it in a way that she wouldn't see coming. Because if she thought she was in control of this situation, she was about to learn just how quickly that control could be taken away. That I started by forwarding the emails to myself. Every single one. The messages, the timestamps, the plans they had made, the way she spoke about me behind my back. I saved it all. Then I went into our phone records, checking to see if Daniel's number appeared there. It did. Hundreds of calls and texts. Late at night, early in the morning, on weekends. While I had been at work, she had been on the phone with him. While I had been in bed waiting for her to come home, she had been sneaking around with him. I clenched my jaw and kept going. I wasn't stopping until I had everything. Next, I checked our bank statements. Emily had a separate personal account, but we still shared a joint one for household expenses. I wasn't expecting to find anything too obvious. She was careful, calculated, but I still found hotel charges. 2 different hotels, multiple stays. One of them was a boutique place downtown, the kind of place people book when they want privacy. More screenshots. More evidence. Then I checked her calendar. She used a shared digital one for work events and appointments, but she also had a private one. I had never bothered looking at it before, but now. Now I had every reason to, and there it was. Dates marked with a single emoji: hearts, wine glasses, airplanes. That I felt sick. Every single one of those marks was a night she had spent with him. Every single one was a night she had looked me in the eyes and lied. But now? Now I knew everything. That I closed the laptop and leaned back in the chair, exhaling slowly. I had enough proof to end this marriage in an instant. But I wasn't going to make it easy for her. She had spent months deceiving me, treating me like a joke. Now it was my turn to take control. That I wasn't going to confront her right away. That would be too easy. She would cry, make excuses, try to spin it around on me. No, I wanted to watch her squirm. I wanted to see her lie to my face, knowing that I had all the proof sitting in my pocket. So I waited. She was supposed to be home in an hour. I forced myself to act normal, to go about my routine like nothing was wrong. I put the laptop back where I found it. I made a cup of coffee. I turned on the TV and let some mindless show play in the background. Every second that passed only made my resolve stronger. Then I heard the front door open. "Hey," Emily called out. She sounded cheerful. I clenched my fist. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice steady. "How was work?" She sighed dramatically. "So exhausting. I swear, my boss is trying to kill me with all these deadlines." She walked into the kitchen, tossing her bag on the counter like she didn't have a care in the world. Like she wasn't hiding a double life. I nodded, sipping my coffee. "That bad, huh?" She groaned, stretching like she was shaking off the stress of the day. "You have no idea." I watched her carefully, taking in every detail. The way she avoided looking directly at me, the way she moved around the kitchen like she was distracted. Like she was already thinking about the next time she would see him. I played along. I let her talk, let her lie. I asked her about her day, about work, about the things she should have been doing instead of sneaking around with another man. She answered every question with ease, every word a carefully crafted deception, and the entire time, I just sat there, knowing something she didn't, knowing that this was the last time she would ever lie to me and get away with it. I watched her move around the house, pretending that everything was normal, and for the first time in my life, I truly saw her for who she was. It was a strange, almost out-of-body experience. How many times had I looked at this woman and believed she was someone who cared about me? Someone who respected me? Someone who wouldn't lie straight to my face? And yet, here she was, going through the motions, playing the role of the loving wife, while I sat there with undeniable proof of her betrayal sitting in my pocket. It wasn't just the act of cheating that made me sick, it was how effortless it was for her to continue deceiving me, as if I meant nothing, as if she had convinced herself that I would never figure it out, that I kept my expression neutral, kept my tone light, nodding at the right moments, making it seem like I was just another oblivious husband, completely unaware of the entire other life she had built behind my back. I let her tell me about her exhausting day, her stressful deadlines, her never-ending workload, all lies. Lies on top of lies. Lies so natural that I started to wonder if she even realized she was telling them anymore, or if it had just become second nature to her. How long had she been this way? Had I been blind from the beginning, or had she changed over time? And if she had changed, when? What was the moment she decided that I was no longer enough, that I was just an inconvenience to be kept in the dark while she indulged in whatever fantasy she had created for herself? Thinking back, I tried to pinpoint the exact moment I had lost her. The first time she had decided to cheat. The first time she had sent a message to him, knowing exactly what she was doing. Had she felt guilt in those early days, or had she justified it to herself so quickly that there had been no hesitation? Had she sat in our bed, in our home, and convinced herself that what she was doing wasn't really wrong? Or had she known all along but just didn't care? That was the part that kept gnawing at me. Not just that she had done this, but that she had never stopped doing it. Months of sneaking around. Months of looking me in the eyes and acting like everything was fine. Months of making me feel like the problem, like I was the one who needed to do more, while she was out there building an entirely separate world behind my back. I thought about all the little things: the sudden attachment to her phone, the nights she stayed out late, the times she snapped at me over things that never used to bother her. It had all been so obvious, yet I had ignored it, convinced myself that I was being paranoid. And the worst part? She counted on that. She had relied on the fact that I would never question her. She had known that I would give her the benefit of the doubt, that I would trust her without hesitation. And I had. That was my biggest mistake. Not catching her sooner, not being suspicious, not questioning the way she had slowly started pulling away from me. I had let her do this to me because I had trusted her. And now? Now, that trust was gone, that I had spent years building a life with her, believing in a marriage that she had already abandoned a long time ago. What was I even fighting for anymore? A woman who had treated me like a fool? A marriage that had been a joke to her? There was no fixing this. There was no conversation, no explanation, no excuse that would ever make me see her as the person I had once loved. That person was gone. If she had ever truly existed at all, that I had options now. I could confront her immediately, throw the evidence in her face and watch as she scrambled for an excuse. Or I could wait, gather even more, make sure that when the moment came, there was nothing she could do to deny it. A part of me wanted to make her sweat, to watch her lie knowing that I had already seen the truth, to watch her try to manipulate me one last time before I completely shattered whatever little illusion she had left. But another part of me just wanted it to be over. I had always thought that when you love someone, you fight for them. You work through problems, you forgive mistakes, you try to rebuild what's broken. But this? This wasn't something that could be rebuilt. This wasn't a mistake, this was a choice she had made, over and over again. And no matter how much I had loved her, no matter how much I had once wanted a future with her, I knew that the only way forward was without her. She thought she had me figured out. She thought I was weak, that I would never leave, that she could keep me in the dark forever. But what she didn't know was that I was already gone. I was sitting in the same room as her, looking at the same person I had spent years with, but the man I used to be, the man who loved her unconditionally, was dead. And in his place was someone who was ready to walk away without looking back. There was no sadness anymore, no heartbreak. Just the cold realization that I had wasted years of my life on someone who had never truly valued me. And that realization? That was the most freeing thing I had ever felt. That I kept thinking about time. Time that I had wasted, time that I would never get back, time that she had stolen from me. People always say that time is the one thing you can never replace, the one thing you can never buy back once it's gone. And I had spent years of my life investing in something that had already been crumbling beneath me long before I even realized it. The past months flashed through my mind like a cruel movie, each scene laced with a truth I had been too blind to see. How many times had she left the house under the pretense of work while I sat at home, trusting that she was telling the truth? How many nights had I gone to bed alone, assuming she was putting in extra hours at the office while she was really in someone else's arms? How many times had she kissed me goodbye after spending the night with another man? I thought about the day she first looked me in the eyes and lied to me without hesitation. The first time she told me she was working late when she was really meeting him. Did she feel guilty in that moment? Did she hesitate, even for a second, before deciding that I didn't matter enough for the truth? Did she even think about me at all, or was I already just an afterthought, the person she came home to when she was done playing out her secret life? The more I thought about it, the more I realized something that made me sick. She had been getting away with this for so long that she didn't even care about hiding it anymore. Everything suddenly made sense. The way she had become so indifferent toward me, the way she had started arguments over nothing just to create distance between us, the way she had completely shut down emotionally while still pretending to be the woman I had married. She wasn't just lying to me, she was living a double life. I had always thought cheating was something that happened in messy, emotional bursts, people giving in to temptation, making mistakes in moments of weakness. But this was planned. This was sustained. This was her making an active choice, over and over again, to betray me. And the worst part? She was so sure I would never find out. She had convinced herself that I was oblivious, that I was weak, that I would never question her. And if I ever did? She had already prepared the lies to cover her tracks. Maybe she even thought that if I did find out, I would forgive her. That I would beg her to stay, that I would somehow blame myself for pushing her away. And maybe, in another version of myself, the man I used to be, I would have. Maybe I would have sat down with her, tried to talk it through, tried to convince myself that there was something still worth saving, but that man was gone. She had killed him. That I thought about all the effort I had put into this marriage, all the nights I had stayed up listening to her complain about work, offering comfort, being her rock, being the kind of husband she could rely on. And the entire time, she had been sharing herself with someone else, treating me like an obligation while treating him like an escape. It wasn't just physical, it was emotional. She had given parts of herself to him that she had stopped giving to me a long time ago. And the fact that she had kept coming home to me, smiling like nothing was wrong, acting like she still cared, was what disgusted me the most. That I had always thought that when a marriage ended, there would be some kind of dramatic moment, some kind of confrontation filled with screaming and accusations. But now that I was sitting here, knowing that my marriage was over, all I felt was cold detachment. There was nothing left to fight for. I didn't want to hear her excuses, didn't want to listen to her try to twist the story into something that made her the victim. Because that's what she would do. That's what people like her always did. She would say that I had grown distant, that I had stopped making her feel special, that she had felt neglected. She would try to turn this around on me, make it seem like I was the reason she had to seek comfort in another man. And maybe if I hadn't seen those emails, maybe if I hadn't read the way she talked about me behind my back, I would have believed her. But I had seen the truth, and I wasn't going to let her rewrite history to make herself feel better. That I had two choices. I could confront her now, throw everything in her face and watch as she scrambled to come up with an excuse. Or I could wait, let her keep lying to me while I made my plans, let her think she was still in control until I was ready to walk away and leave her with nothing. The second option sounded better. I didn't want a dramatic fight. I didn't want her fake tears, her desperate apologies that wouldn't mean anything. I wanted her to feel the same level of powerlessness that she had made me feel. I wanted to watch her realize she had lost everything the moment I walked away without looking back. So I made my decision. I was going to act like nothing was wrong. I was going to play the part of the clueless, loving husband for just a little longer. And when the moment was right, when she least expected it, I was going to show her just how much she had underestimated me, because she thought she was in control, but she had no idea that I was about to destroy the life she thought she had so carefully built. That I had always been a patient man. I believed in thinking things through, in not letting emotions control my actions. And now, more than ever, I needed to stay in control. I had all the evidence I needed. I had the emails, the messages, the bank transactions, the hidden calendar events. I had undeniable proof of what she had been doing behind my back for months. But proof wasn't enough. I wanted her to feel the weight of her choices. The moment I decided not to confront her immediately, everything became clearer. If I exploded, if I let my emotions dictate my actions, she would turn it around on me. She would cry, she would manipulate, she would make excuses. I had seen it before, how people like her twisted the truth, how they convinced themselves that their betrayal was somehow justified. I wasn't going to give her that chance. I was going to make her believe she had won.so. For the first time since finding out, I looked at her and pretended nothing was wrong, that it was harder than I expected. Every word she said felt like an insult, every smile a slap in the face. She moved around the house like she always had, texting on her phone, laughing at something she refused to show me, making plans that had nothing to do with me. And I watched, taking mental notes, memorizing every move she made, every lie she told. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. She was still asleep beside me, looking peaceful, like someone without a care in the world. I stared at her, wondering how she could do it, how she could lie so easily, how she could look me in the eyes every day and pretend to love me when she had already given herself to someone else. I felt nothing for her anymore. Whatever love I had once felt was gone, replaced by something else, a quiet, unshakable determination. That I got up, showered, got dressed, and left the house before she woke up. She would probably assume I had an early meeting or some work errand to run. I didn't care what she thought. I had bigger things to take care of. My first stop was my lawyer's office. I hadn't even told him what was happening yet, but the second I sat down in his office, I laid it all out. I showed him the emails, the messages, the hotel receipts, the records of her late-night calls. I expected him to be surprised, maybe even uncomfortable, but he just nodded. He had seen this before. What do you want to do? He asked me. I already knew the answer. I want out. And I don't want her to see it coming. He nodded again, understanding exactly what I meant. We started discussing options, ways to protect myself, ways to make sure she didn't get anything more than what she deserved, which, in my opinion, was nothing. The house? I didn't care about it. The money? As long as she didn't try to take what wasn't hers, I didn't mind splitting assets. But what I really wanted, what I needed, was to walk away with my dignity intact. While she was left picking up the pieces, the plan started coming together quickly. Quietly moving assets, gathering final pieces of evidence, making sure she wouldn't be able to twist the story once I left. By the time I walked out of that office, I had a strategy. And I felt lighter. For the first time in days, I felt like I was in control again. That I spent the rest of the day putting things in motion. Changing passwords, making copies of important documents, preparing for the moment I would walk away for good. When I finally returned home that evening, she was already there, sitting on the couch with her laptop, looking like she had had a long day. She glanced up at me, gave me a small, tired smile. A wife greeting her husband after a long day. The perfect illusion. The perfect lie. I smiled back. I had become good at pretending. As the days passed, I continued gathering everything I needed. I watched her, listened to her lies, let her believe she was untouchable. She had no idea what was coming. She had no idea that while she was sneaking around, while she was laughing at me behind my back, I was slowly, carefully taking apart the world she thought she had built so carefully. And then, one evening, something happened that changed everything. She slipped up. I thought I had time. I thought I had control over the situation, that I could take my time, execute my plan perfectly, and leave her with nothing when I was ready. But the thing about liars, about people who live their lives wrapped in deception, is that they eventually get too comfortable. They start thinking they're invincible. And when that happens, they slip up that I had been playing the role of the oblivious husband perfectly. Every morning, I kissed her goodbye, wished her a good day, let her believe she was still fooling me. Every evening, I listened to her fake stories about work, about how busy she was, how tired she felt. I let her feed me lie after lie, let her believe I was too trusting to ever suspect a thing. And because I was so good at pretending, she let her guard down. She stopped being careful. She got sloppy. It happened on a Friday night. She was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, just like she always did. I was at the dining table, casually checking my emails, pretending to be focused on work. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her texting someone, her fingers moving fast, her expression slightly different, excited, eager. I didn't have to guess who she was talking to. I knew, and then it happened. Her phone buzzed with an incoming call. I glanced up just in time to see the name on the screen before she snatched the phone up like a reflex, turning the screen away from me. But it was too late. I had already seen it. Daniel. Her face went pale for a split second. Just a flicker of panic before she recovered, standing up quickly and walking toward the bedroom, muttering something about needing to take the call in private. But I didn't say a word. I just sat there, calm, watching her go, knowing that the moment I had been waiting for had just arrived. She had never received a call from him at home before. She had been too careful, too meticulous about keeping her two worlds separate. But now? Now she had made the mistake I needed. The one mistake that would bring everything crashing down around her. I stood up, my heart hammering in my chest, but not with anger, with finality. This was it. This was the moment. I walked toward the bedroom, pausing just outside the door. Her voice was low, hurried, trying to keep the conversation quiet. But I heard enough. She told him she missed him. She told him she couldn't wait to see him again. She laughed. And that was all I needed to hear. I pushed the door open. She froze, phone still pressed to her ear. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Her face went white. And then, in the most pathetic, desperate attempt to salvage the situation, she hung up and tried to smile. That was just. I didn't let her finish. I pulled out my phone, tapped the screen a few times, and then turned it toward her. The emails. The messages. The hotel receipts. Evidence, clear as day, sitting right in front of her, undeniable. Her smile vanished. Her entire face collapsed. I didn't speak. I didn't have to. The silence between us was heavy, suffocating, filled with everything she wanted to say but couldn't. And then? She started lying. She tried to tell me it wasn't what it looked like. That it was just a misunderstanding. That she and Daniel were just friends. That the messages were being taken out of context. That she had only met him a few times, that it didn't mean anything. That she was going to end it anyway. Every word out of her mouth was a desperate attempt to rewrite reality, but I just stood there, watching her, letting her dig herself deeper into her own pit of lies. And then, when she finally ran out of excuses, she did what I had been expecting all along. She got angry. She turned it around on me. She said that I had pushed her away, that I had become too distant, that I had stopped making her feel wanted. That she had been unhappy, that I should have noticed. That if I had been a better husband, she wouldn't have had to look elsewhere. It was pathetic. And it only confirmed what I already knew: she was never going to take responsibility. So I didn't waste another second. I walked out of the room. I grabbed my bag, the one I had already packed days ago. The one I had been waiting to use, and I left. No screaming. No argument. No dramatic fight. I didn't give her the chance to keep lying to me, because she had already lost. She just didn't know it yet. The next morning, she called. Over and over again. Messages, voicemails, desperate attempts to explain, to cry, to beg. I didn't answer a single one. I didn't owe her anything. By the time she realized I had already filed for divorce, already started erasing her from my life, it was too late. She tried to fight it at first, tried to manipulate the situation, but it didn't matter anymore. The damage had already been done, and she was the one who had done it. People always ask, what would you do if you found out your spouse was cheating? Most think they'd yell, break things, demand an explanation. But the truth is, nothing you say will ever change what happened. They made their choice long before you ever found out. And once you see them for who they really are, there's only one thing left to do: walk away. No second chances. No closure conversations. No room for explanations, because the moment they made that choice, they stopped deserving you. And the best revenge, living a life where they no longer exist.